On this episode of the podcast, I have with me Ofer Shterling. He is the CTO at Amberflo.io. We're going to be talking about the evolution of the CTPO role, the Chief Technology and Product Officer role. We're going to be diving into why the role is becoming a current trend, why people are adopting to it, and what that really means. Ofer, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. By the way, before we dive in, what does your company do, just so everyone's aware of what the company does?
Yeah, so Amberflo is the main problem that we solve is monetization problem for companies, or what I call the pricing problem. Companies have all kind of pricing objectives, short-term revenue, long-term revenue, increase the customer base, increase the retention of customers. And we try to help them achieve actually all of that, basically solve the pricing problem. As a company, we are a usage-based company because we believe that by measuring usage, meaning what is done by whom, when, and to what scale, we can help the company understand their customer better. And we also use the usage data in order to provide companies with usage-based pricing plan, meaning usage-based really the pricing, promotions are usage-based, commitment contract are usage-based, etc.
Let's talk about the CTPO role. And let's talk about kind of where this position has kind of come from and why you have, why you've kind of thought of this as a potential, good solution for where you're at. I guess, you actually moved to startup for the first time and you kind of mentioned, some of this, product and ideation as a big reason of why you made that move.
Yeah, that is correct. So Amberflo is the first kind of a seed startup I worked with. Today we are Series A and hopefully Series B down the line. At the time, I was one of their first two engineers. And I live in Seattle, kind of so-called corporate land. I worked in the past with two big companies in Seattle, Amazon and Microsoft. After the second time I worked with Amazon, I decided to go to a smaller company, Stripe, not so small anymore. And I always love to create things. I always had the passion to create things and bring things to the world and progress it even by a little, give me a lot of meaning. And I felt like I don't get as much as I want from that with the big companies. And I decided it's important for me enough to move to a really a small seed startup at the time. I actually moved as a founding engineer. My goal was mostly to go ahead and think and create and bring ideas to the world. And not necessarily to become a CTO. CTO kind of came later.
Interesting. I guess when you're looking at, and right now you obviously moved there to, really focus on, some of that creation and ideation kind of on the product side. How much of your time currently is spent on that side of the house? How involved are you with the product team?
Yeah, I didn't exactly measure how much time I put on it, but I do a lot of that. Much of the product I created originally, and then these days I'm pretty much overseeing, or I'm also initiating any project that we have. And by that I mean really any project, any new feature, big feature that we have, then I'm involved and in many cases initiate the process. Let's say this way, it is possible for companies to have a designated CPO. It's totally fine and it's totally possible. I think there are cases where it makes sense for the builder of the company, the CTO, to also serve to a large degree as the CPO of the company. Cases, first of all, when there is no CPO, then pretty much someone needs to take that responsibility. And the second case is also when the product that you are about to create is very vague. Yes, when we just started, there was this idea of measuring users in the air. There was some idea for doing usage-based pricing, but the details were not exactly there. And in order to come up with a story, there is the say, God is in the details. In order to come up with a good story, in order to come up with a good product, we needed to understand the details. We needed to do research work, and we needed to do a lot of thinking. And that I did as part of prototyping of the product, and then later on creating the data pipeline. And that way, it came natural. It comes it was just part of the past to become a CPTO.
I guess as you're kind of seeing that, the CTPO and that hat that you're wearing, how does your team benefit, I guess, with you as one person wearing both hats? I guess that's I think where maybe people are trying to gravitate towards a CTPO role, is obviously there's a direct benefit to the engineering team. How are you seeing those benefits?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, in cases where something like the product itself is very innovative, in cases where it's also vague, I think it makes a lot of sense for the CTO to understand the domain very, very well. At the end of the day, you are the builder of the company. You need to build a functioning company that actually help many customers. Some of them are big and have all kind of complex requirements. So it really, really helps that the builder of the company understand the domain very, very well.
I guess when you're looking at your role and you're looking at having both those hats and having the vision for product, where obviously you're responsible for technology, and you're looking at your roadmap and you're looking at what the team has to deliver. Do you balance things differently? Because obviously you always have an engineering hat on. I mean, do you look at things and go, well, customers have asked for this, but I know it's going to be a little bit unlikely that we can produce something like that, and you kind of might shy away from it?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I of course, as an engineer, always love I call beautiful system and kind of a groom code and etc. And we actually do have a beautiful system and we have good code. The thing is really yes, when you are a CPTO, I would even say it you feel a little bit like a butcher. Yes, you do need all the time to make decision calls and cut things and decide, okay, this is in, this is out, this is important, this is not important. And yes, sometimes it does, we do have a bit of a conflict, hey, there is something here that we want to do better. Eventually, we do it better. Yes, if we do have in our deadlines and we do a cut, and then of course, a follow-up task is to complete it in a way that we wanted it to be.
When you look at, I guess, your team, is there a time in which you envision handing off the product responsibilities to somebody else and going back to engineering, or do you think keeping it centralized potentially for a little while is going to benefit the company?
In the short term, I think it benefits the company. As I mentioned, I'm the builder. My responsibility is to create a company. we don't have a lot of resources. Yes, a startup at seed stage and even at a Series A stage, money is still very expensive. You need to make all of the right decisions. And you cannot be wrong much, or basically you cannot be wrong at all. So at this point, it's really like serves the company, and kind of nature took us this way. As I mentioned originally, I joined the company as a founding engineer, was no plans for a CTPO of any kind. Now, down the line, of course, it's not scalable. Yes, when a company grows and grows and grows and grows, it's not scalable. You cannot be involved in each and everything. I would kind of say it in the following way. I love to think about things as a game. Yes, the question is okay, how can I contribute the most to the company? What are the things that I should do as the CTO and contribute to contribute the company the best way that I can? And then, again, as I mentioned, you feel a little bit like a butcher. Yes, you also need to kind of cut off some of the things that you are doing. For me, for example, the way that I go about it, and as a big believer in win-win in life, I try to let's assume I want to come up with a new initiative, a new product. I think that I identify a pain point of the customer. Now I go ahead and do some writing. I actually love to do some writing and start writing the context and my thoughts, and eventually it will bring me to the problem, and then I can also think about some solutions. I do that really, and I write 3-5 pages. That's not like a product, it's just like a kind of a first step. And then I kind of usually I try to treat the way to create a good product as a relay race. Yes, I take these 5 pages, I have a discussion, have agreement about the problem, the need, the idea, and then I write a few next tasks, which usually include what I call PM detailing. The PM take the task, try to come up with a more detailed story for it. We have a few iterations around it. Eventually, it reaches also the engineering. So basically, kind of start taking off some of the responsibilities, still be very involved, still be part of the game of creation. As I mentioned, kind of a relay race. But this time, not just you compete by yourself, but you compete together, completely together with others on the race of creating good products with good ideas. So this works definitely for the short term. Now that we are 40 people, it works great. Of course, question is what will happen down in the future when you are 100 people, 200 people, and etc. Kind of a little bit of a stoic approach in life. Life is a change. We just need to accept it. Yes, what works now might need some adaptation down the line, and it's all good. And when we reach the bridge, we will see. As I mentioned, when we started the game is by asking ourselves, what is that I want to do? How do I contribute the most to the company? So I will ask myself the same question, and we'll see how we do it.
Let me ask you this question. You've been running with this tool. Obviously, a lot of that makes sense. You think things will change, and next level you'll reevaluate. Anything you've learned from holding both the titles? Is there anything that you're like, hey, I wish I knew this before? Being responsible for both the technology and product teams.
First of all, that it's a lot of fun. a lot of fun. I think that. I think if you want to be a good creator, generally speaking, I would say that any goal that you have in life, anything that you want to do and do well and you care about, you need to balance between 3 things: passion, compassion, and inner peace. Having a passion to create, go ahead and start creating code by itself, not enough to do like a good job. You also need compassion. You need to understand like the goal of the company, the other actors in the company, and of course also like to understand the customer and their pain points, genuinely understand those things. Passion by itself is not enough. So, and of course, in the long run, if you have passion, but you don't have compassion and you cannot do a good job, then you won't be in an inner peace. So, in order to balance those things, really, like, you need to pretty much take an approach where when you create a software, when you build a company, then like you, in my view at least, you do understand the domain. As a builder, you do need to understand the domain very well. And actually, yeah, I really believe in this. So it's not just fun. I also think it's the right thing to do for us as a company, and I believe many companies at their early stages.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, obviously, I could definitely see the early stage. I actually see a lot of benefits, and now, as the company grows, you could see a bit of a divergence in terms of where the role will go. I guess final question, as you're kind of, you have both hats. If you get to a point where you have to give up the product, how are you going to miss it?
I think not. I think like eventually, I do still code actually. I even code quite a lot. There are like 30 people under my org, and nevertheless, I still code quite a lot. Not as in the past, and of course, you still you miss it a little bit. But I think like when you look at the bigger picture and you ask yourself, okay, am I satisfied? Do I think I do like a good job? Do I contribute to the company? And the answer is yes. Then, as I mentioned, change is part of life, and we should just accept it.
Fair words. That's actually very true. And I was going to say, Ofer, thanks for coming on. Thanks for covering the topic. I think it's interesting. A lot of people are moving to that CTPO setup, and it's a growing trend. So glad you could share. If somebody wants to reach out to you to ask you more about like, your experience in the role and kind of your learnings, what's a good way of getting a hold of you?
Definitely LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, I would say LinkedIn.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include that in the show notes. And thank you for coming on the show, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. That's it for the episode. I'll come back again. We'll have a different guest, different topic. Until then, please share the episode. I think the CTPO concept's growing. I hear a lot of people actually asking us to kind of touch on it. So I'm glad we're doing some episodes around the role, and, share, like, subscribe, do all those things. I appreciate it always. Thank you. And until next time, goodbye.